What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Third and Longhorn. We have a show today that I know we're all very excited about, and I know we've had so many people requesting, so I'm very excited to introduce Sam Ehlinger. Sam, thanks for being here, man.
No, baby. Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I just want to open with, this is what makes the University of Texas so special. You got so many different aspects of the game, after the game, professional lives, professionals, in every facet of life. So the camaraderie, the brotherhood, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you, Rob.
I think we found my replacement. I just want to sit here. I can go on the other side.
We need to chop that up into a sound bite.
For real.
That's a promo piece.
It is.
Well, man, we always start these the exact same way. We ask everyone how they got to Texas. And, a lot of people felt like yours was a no-brainer, like it was 100% going to be Texas no matter what. But, I did see you had offers from Florida State, SMU, Houston. I don't think any of us actually delved into how much you got recruited, et cetera. Could you go into that and how you got to Texas?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I always knew where I wanted to go. Back when I was going through recruiting, everybody kind of played the process, right? You go to all the camps, see how many offers you can get, right? So I kind of entertained that as a young 15-year-old for a little bit. But I always knew I wanted to go somewhere that had great academics and great football. Yeah. And I grew up, obviously, being a big Longhorn fan. And so when I got the offer, it was kind of a no-brainer. I always kind of said USC, Texas, Stanford, like high academic standard, great football program. I wasn't really entertaining those other ones if I got Texas. But so I got offered after my sophomore year. And then pretty much shut down my recruitment. My head coach in high school, he played at Texas as well, Todd Dodge, legendary coach. And he took me out to dinner after probably a few weeks of me messing around, like pretending like I'm going to go somewhere else. And he sat me down. He's like, it's time to commit. And I was like, all right, you're right. So there was never really any other consideration. We talked to other schools and thought about it, but not really.
The initial, interaction that I had with you, Sam, I don't even know if you remember this. It was either 8th grade or 7th grade. It might have been 7th grade, the Naps.
Yeah.
So Ben and Eli. I coached in and subbed for a couple of games. I got in trouble, by the way, too, as a coach. I was like, hey, if y'all got the 3-point, take the shot. We was running full court press, fast break. It was one game you weren't able to make it, though, and I got to coach the team, and everybody was like, man, we're winning, but we don't even have our best player. Our best player is Sam. And I was like, okay, what's Sam talking about? It's like, well, he played quarterback. He does everything for us. It's not just the quarterback, but he can run, he can catch. You could do all of these things. And I was like, okay, man, this kid, I don't know if they boosting or Sam actually the real deal.
Probably a little bit.
But at the end of the day, I got to see you actually in action in the fall. And I was like, okay, they said Sam was an athlete. They said he the best player on the team. Let me really see what Sam is about. And, man, from that moment on, being able to follow your career path at the end of your middle school career and then going into the high school, seeing how you were able to develop, grow, lead your team, do the things that you did at Westlake, it was impressive. And it was unbelievable to see the way that you left your mark and how you impacted the people around you. I think that's what makes it so different. You did the same thing at Texas, right? Texas was in a spot where struggling, but you were the lone bright spot. But not only was it just you, but you elevated people around you. Yeah. What has been that kind of piece internally that has allowed you to impact and affect so many people around you to bring up and elevate not just your game, but those around you as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. First off, before I get there, I remember that. And I think, as y'all know, and as the audience probably knows the character of this man, and the inspiration that it was like to have Fozzy in the community and inspiring young guys to be like, hey, guess who coached me yesterday? That was a thing. So thank you for your character and the way that you poured. You gave us, big dreams. So thank you for that. And then to answer your question, I think, ultimately, that is – it's just something I was born with. I would love to take credit for it, but I can't. I think a leader is someone who, takes others to a place that they can't go themselves ultimately. And that's through a lot of different ways, right? And a lot of people have different styles. But I hope that from a verbal standpoint, but also from an action standpoint, you see a model and an expectation of what what the standard is, and hopefully that helps guys get better, and ultimately having relationships to feed into that, to be able to encourage, and also understanding what guys need. Some guys need encouragement, some guys need to be told. You know, there's a lot of different styles to it. So ultimately, I think just something I was born with, and I praise God for that.
Yes, sir, man.
Can you talk about the foundation? Because I know you can brag on this a little bit, Westlake, and you know the football culture there at Westlake, and you're a big part of that. Matter of fact, you are, I think, the epitome of it in a lot of ways. Now there are a lot of guys on the team. A couple of guys from Westlake, Michael Taft, Colton Vosick, Ethan Burke. There's a pipeline there. I've been hearing about a young Sam Ehlinger in that community for a long time. Talk about the community and the culture of Westlake football, because really outside of DFW and Houston, it's hard to be a powerhouse. Producing top level athletes year after year, but Westlake has managed to be that. They're kind of an outlier. Honestly, they've sparked Central Texas because now a lot of teams trying to keep up with the Joneses have tried to match Westlake in a lot of ways. I'm not going to bring up rivals and that kind of stuff. I don't want to disrespect.
You said it right. They're trying to match it.
They're trying. But it is really interesting. That's a really unique community in terms of the football connection and culture there. Ty Dodge, you brought up, was a big part of it. What makes it so special? How are you guys ahead of the game in terms of producing top athletes and competing for championships when Central Texas wasn't really doing that back in the day?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the previous guys that have been there. I mean, growing up, being in Austin, everybody always asks me, who's your pro team? I say, well, first off, the Longhorns were my pro team in Austin that I grew up watching. And so you have that, and that kind of creates the pipeline. But you look at, especially at the quarterback position, the guys that have been there with Drew Brees and Nick Foles, and just the standard that's been set, Justin Tucker as a kicker. There's many other guys that have played in high-level college football that have set the standard before. And so I think the culture from when you're young all the way until high school is like basically grooming you for being a Westlake football player. Like that's the coolest thing in the world. Yeah. And then like being in Austin, the biggest team is the Longhorns. So then that becomes the aspiration when you have the culture of Westlake and everything. And then obviously great coaches. I think, I owe everything in my career to Coach Dodge. He's an incredible head coach, and he's done it at multiple different places, and he's proven that and has a lot of coaching disciples that have come off of that. So I think coaches, previous players, just gotten really lucky to grow up in that community.
Yeah, I hear you guys are running like the same systems and stuff, and when you guys like in middle school, like they're running the same plays, same technique, and I'm like, so these guys have basically been in the same system, same technique, same terminology for like 5 years. By the time they even get to high school,
with
is
the
that
same
part of
guys,
the team?
with the same guys, right?
People.
Same players. So you're playing 7-on-7 in middle school, and you're connecting with guys that you're going to be playing in high school with. So when you throw a fade route senior year in the state championship game, you've been doing that for 7 years. You better catch that thing.
Same ball, same play.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, that's awesome. When you talk about West, this is not my question, but when you talk about Westlake football, I played Westlake a couple times. And that was when Brett Robin was there, and I think Earl Campbell had a son there at that time. They beat us, obviously, but we were really good, and we had like 6, 7, 8 guys that go D1 and whatnot, maybe more than Westlake at the time. But they still beat us. Like Westlake football is a thing. Like they play together, they play as a team. They're tough as nails. And just when you ask that question, I'm thinking like I know that person. Sam, you embody Texas tough. So I gotta tell you that you embody that, man. I never had a chance to actually tell you that personally. Watching and coaching from the couch, us older guys looking at Texas football. You embody Texas tough. So, and you're a quarterback. That doesn't, that's, we can say all the other positions, but you're a quarterback, dude. Where does that come from? Or is it, did you wake up like that, or did you is that something that was learned? But you are Texas tough. You embody that. Where does that grit come from at the quarterback position?
Right. I think it's a combination of a lot of different things, and there's a lot of factors that we could highlight. I think I was raised that way, and I think it's a combination between toughness and pride. ultimately. Like, I grew up with so much pride for the University of Texas, going to baseball, basketball, football games. And so there's so much pride in the winning tradition. And I think of the quote that I think they have in the Texas baseball locker room. We had it hung up in our house, which was the University of Texas, something along the lines of, will not be entrusted to the weak nor the timid.
It was in your house.
It was in our house.
That's a different
So,
thing, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have that now.
So the weak nor the timid were not entering the house, right?
Yeah.
And so just the values were instilled at a really early age to know that was the standard.
Yeah.
And so when there's a standard and there's a culture, like, then I'm just adapting to the culture and the standard. And so I think the combination of kind of that culture and then also the pride for the university is where that came from.
Man, hold on. I got a couple more. So, Sam, you growing up in Austin and seeing Colts, seeing BY, two of the best quarterbacks to ever come to University of Texas, ever, right? And you go behind those guys. Was there any kind of pressure, any kind of maybe positive pressure for you coming to University of Texas, even though you've always dreamed that, but playing the quarterback position is the hardest position to play. It's always criticized. It's, we can say a bunch of stuff about it fan-wise when it comes to critiquing that position. That's the hardest position on the field, and you wanted to step into those shoes, which is a big deal. Man, that shows your confidence level. Did that weigh on you at all, or did you ever think about that?
I did.
Okay.
I did, and it was heavy. It's hard.
Yeah.
Especially walking into, ultimately there weren't a lot of winning seasons before we got there.
True.
And so it's a high expectation with really hard circumstances. And always looked up to VY, Colt, all the ones that came before, and I wanted to be considered in that category when I left.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so
a lot of their records, by the way. You slayed them. So
You are
absolutely
in that category.
I appreciate it, and so that was the standard. That was the expectation, and so I think that also played into the toughness piece. Was like, I'm not going to be denied because I idolize those people, and they've been awesome in my development. And Colt's been great in the professional element. I know we'll get there of being a mentor through that process. And so that goes into what we said earlier about just the brotherhood and camaraderie. Yeah. So it's definitely present and definitely was a motivating factor.
Man, that's awesome.
Cool. Just a quick sidebar. Everybody's talking about their experience with Westlake. Pflugerville beat Westlake. The People boys beat Westlake back in 2008.
Was that a down year?
I've been holding this one. It had a little note.
It was the year after Nick Foles left, so they were kind of transitioning a little bit. But hey,
what was the score?
I don't remember the score. I should have looked it up, but I don't remember the score. We can look it up after this. I just had to throw that in.
Looks like enough about you. Let's talk about you.
Take it to the field, huh?
Nah. Anyways, the 2010s was a dark period for Texas in terms of winning. When you look at that decade of football, one of the few bright spots was 2018, that Sugar Bowl championship down in New Orleans.
Man.
What all went into that season? What did it take to pull that type of team together and get that type of outcome?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it was, obviously that was year 2 of Coach Herman, and we had really good talent on defense. We had a great offensive line, really good receiving core. And I think it was the most complete team that we had in a while. And I think things, we started off the season, lost to Maryland. And so we kind of got punched in the gut early. And the team, I think, that led by kind of that senior class was kind of like, this is not how we're going to go down. We're going to, keep swinging. And we just kept stringing wins together. And I think also for myself, rough freshman year with a few turnovers late. But Coach Herman really stuck with me. And he said, he brought me into his office after that game, and we were playing USC at home, or maybe it was TCU. And he was like, hey, look, I'm riding with you. I'm trusting you. And so I think that gave me good confidence kind of to be able to really continue to grow in that. And so I'm forever grateful for that. So I think it was a culmination of a lot of things. Things kind of came together defensively, up front. Obviously we had really good skill position as well. So It was a bright spot, obviously lost in the Big 12 championship, which was unfortunate. Which, by the way, has there been a stretch? Think about Oklahoma quarterbacks during that time period. Freshman year, Baker Mayfield.
Let's go. Keep going.
You had the hardest.
Hold on. Sophomore year,
Speak on it.
Kyler Murray.
You're right. Yeah.
Junior year, Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
Senior year, who also started a few games in the NFL this year, Spencer Rattler.
Sure. Come on now.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying anything by that, but that might have been the greatest stretch in OU history of quarterback play.
Easily. You had 2 number 1
Not
overall
even
picks.
OU. Like it's
Heisman.
hard to find a program
Finished
where
second.
it's
Yeah,
such a
right,
unique
college
play.
football.
Right? Yeah, college football.
Yeah.
Yes.
In
College
general.
football.
No doubt.
Back-to-back
With Lincoln Riley.
That's real. That's real though.
So, yeah, but would have liked to beat them in the Big 12 championship.
I said that to say this.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay, no, I'm going to ask you this. Speaking of that 2018 season, that was a special season, man. I remember covering that season, and I remember calling you Bam Bam Sam. That was my nickname for you.
I remember.
You remember that?
Yeah.
You were the best red zone short yardage weapon in the country. Like you could not be stopped in short yardage in red zone. Did y'all know that at the time? Like the short yardage in red zone, we can't be stopped, and it's because they weaponized you in that manner. Is that what Coach Herman had it basically in store? That what he wanted to do? That was the intent.
I think so, yeah. I think that's what it ultimately kind of, forged into. We kind of developed that identity throughout the season to where, you get the QB run game, you get an extra hat in the run game.
I was just about to say that.
Like
I'm a
he was-
defensive guy.
Yeah.
Design quarterback runs, dude.
But you were like Scatterbo in the quarterback position.
I know. You get an extra hat. You know?
Wow.
Ultimately, if you scheme it up right and you block it up
Man,
right,
it's
the
tough,
next
bro.
the free hitter is the safety.
Yeah.
And let's be real, no safety was bringing you down.
No, this is why I don't say to bring them down. Your 2 receivers.
Yeah.
They were huge.
Yeah.
You
They
had
blocked great.
you had Colin and Lou Jordan, so you couldn't bring the
Yep.
safety down because
That's
that's
right.
one-on-one,
Yeah.
50-50 balls
Yeah.
all day.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful offensive identity.
Well,
at
we
the
had
time.
Andrew Beck, who's still in the league.
Yeah.
He was a great
He
blocking.
could block.
Yeah.
Man, I love that offense, bro. That was a really lethal offense.
Yeah.
Well, I want to take it back to OU because you were part of some very famous OU moments while you were at Texas. I got a 2-parter, so we'll start with the first part. Obviously, I'll get yelled at if I don't ask this. So can you take us through the famous Eyes of Texas photo and what actually happened in that whole situation?
Yes, absolutely. I think we could take the whole podcast talking about this.
It's 2 parts, so.
Yeah. Bear with me. Okay, so obviously that was during the 2020 season where there was a lot of political and social unrest and a lot of things going on. So we had a lot of things come up that year, just as the rest of the country did. COVID, lockdown, everything going on. So 4 overtime game against Oklahoma. That's probably the most exhausted I've ever been. I was running around the whole game. I remember when I threw the interception at the end of the game, I couldn't even feel my body throwing the ball. Like I was so exhausted. I was like, ugh. And I just couldn't control it. Which my bad, guys. I'm sorry. But just so tired, right? And so I don't think that it was an organized thing where the team was like, no, we're not standing out. Like we had just lost in 4 overtimes. It was exhausting. It was COVID. There were so many different factors that went into it. And so I really don't think that it was a malicious act of, hey, we're not doing this. It ended up being portrayed that way to where I was the only one standing for the Eyes of Texas. Actually, Taquan Graham was on the field waiting for me because he didn't want to leave me alone. So he was out there as well. He just wasn't in the photo.
Because TQ.
Yeah, no doubt. Because OU's running around the field, waving the flags, doing all that. So everybody's like, man, I want to get the heck off this field. So I really don't think that it was malicious. It obviously turned into a very divisive time, and there were a lot of conversations that were had. And so ultimately what ended up happening was I actually went into President Hartzell's office, and they had brought in Brad Deitzer, who's a communication consultant. He works with a lot of Fortune 500 companies to be able to come in and help different communication things. And so which I think the world of him, and he did a great job helping in that situation. But I basically sat down with him, and he's like, hey, here's the deal. Like, what should we do? Here's the eyes of Texas. This is what's going on. The team is very divided. What are some solutions that we can come up with for not only the team, but also the fan base? And so we spent a few hours in President Hartzell's office talking about that. And so what ended up happening was we were like, all right, well, let's just, he was coming to meet with the leadership council. So we had 12 to 15 guys that were on the leadership council of the team. And he was like, think about it. We'll talk about it. So we ended up getting to the leadership council meeting, and he's talking to us, and he's doing his best to kind of, get information like, well, how are y'all feeling? What's going on? And it wasn't really taking a good turn. And so ultimately what ended up happening was I stood up and I just kind of shared my heart with the eyes of Texas. And I told the leadership council, I said, guys, here's where we're at. We're in the middle of the season. We're still in the Big 12 hunt, right? We had played LSU the year before. They had 20 plus something guys drafted. Ultimately, we all want to go to the league. And what did they do? They won, right? You win, you get drafted, and that's what we want. And right now, I understand that this is something that we need answers on, and we want answers on. But like ultimately, that's not our job right now. Like there's experts out there that are going to go determine if this song is racist, and our job right now is to win football games. I said, the Eyes of Texas, to me, that's never been ever anything close to a racist song. It has been something that has brought us together after games. I remember standing with my family after games, singing the Eyes of Texas, and the pride and the tradition that we had after wins, after losses, still singing that song. And I said, look, that's the fan base too, because it was getting divided. Like, what are they doing? I'm sure people were attacking the players back and forth, whatever. And I said, that's the fan base too. Never once have they thought like this is a racist thing. I'm going to sing this to be like, that's not the situation. So I think it was just a perfect storm of a lot of different factors. So I shared that with the leadership council and kind of shared my heart. And luckily we had some really good leaders on the team at the time too, that I asked, hey, I understand that we want answers on this, but do you mind, just so we can look past this and focus on beating Baylor and, getting to the Big 12 championship and winning games, would you mind just like standing for the song? You don't have to sing it until we have answers, but just so we can look past this and move forward so it doesn't, continue to create a problem. And he was like, yeah, you know what, I respect that. Thank you for sharing that, which I thought was great. And so I said, okay, well, we're about to go into a team meeting, and I'm going to get up and share what I just shared with y'all in front of all the players, all the coaches. Will you get up and say that you're going to do the same thing? And so we can just move past this and focus on winning. And he was like, yeah, I got you. And so we had some good leaders that came together and realized the situation for what it was, and kind of it brought us together versus kind of separating us. Yeah. Wow. And so that was a very long-winded answer. That
was an incredible.
We could be here.
Well, the second part's a little bit lighter. And CJ Vogel, our buddy from On Texas Football, who works with Rod there too, he had a great question that is actually about that same season. And he wanted to know about the COVID game and just what it was like. Was it easier, harder, different? Like, what was that like playing in front of obviously lighter crowds? And it was such a strange year for everyone.
Yeah, it was really weird. It was really unfortunate. It was really unfortunate, especially senior year, like running out on senior day, and you got 25% of the capacity there. It was weird. It was unfortunate. It was different. It was just like everything that year. Everybody experienced it in one way or another by lockdowns or whatever it may be. I think the OU game was probably the weirdest because you got 50-50, and we're in overtime, so we're going back and forth 4 different times, and people are trying to run back, and OU and Texas fans are fighting at the 50-yard line. Like, you're not coming down here. I never thought about that.
That's crazy.
They were trying to move. There's fights breaking out.
I'd have been doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
For sure. So that was weird. It was just a rough year all around.
Yeah.
Transition period. Now, speaking of transitions, obviously you go from COVID, having to deal with all the shutdown stuff, and then you're getting ready to prepare for the NFL draft. What was it like in preparation for the draft? Was there still certain restrictions in place? Like, how did you plan and move around that? How did you meet with coaches and teams considering some of the restrictions that were set in place? And then do you feel like the things that you learned throughout the football season, your senior year, kind of helped you navigate throughout the NFL season and then propel you forward throughout the rest of your career so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my whole experience at UT and the relationships that I created and the leadership position I was put in has helped me in the league, no questions asked. The NFL draft prep stuff was different. Obviously, there wasn't a combine. We had a medical combine, but we didn't have a real combine. So we went up to Indy and had the medical part of everything, but didn't have the on-field stuff. All of our meetings with NFL teams and coaches was on Zoom. So I went up to Fort Worth because there weren't very many regulations up there and trained at Apex. So we kind of got pounded up there, They didn't really care up there, right? No doubt. And so that was great. But it was different. And now, I don't know any different. I don't know what it's like to go to a combine and to have in-person meetings and things like that. So it was pretty standard for me. But
it's like what I know.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
sorry.
No, I was just gonna say about the combine. That kind of sucks because the worst part of the combine is the medical.
Yeah.
So
No question.
The fact that you didn't do you didn't do anything but the medical.
Yeah.
That's like the worst part.
Yeah, that's the worst part. Like
That
that's a miserable experience. I'm sorry, Sam.
It's all good. It's all good.
I always said, and this is it was meant as a compliment, that when I first saw you, you were a football player playing quarterback, and your challenge was to kind of transform yourself into a quarterback. You obviously did that. You're an NFL quarterback. What have you done to take that next step to become a guy that can be an NFL QB? Because you've always been a great football player. I think Fozzy established that back in the day. Playing quarterback is a different monster altogether. It's a different challenge.
Absolutely.
And at every level, it gets a little bit tougher.
No question.
You've done things on your own. Every athlete does. What have you done to meet that challenge?
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely right. And ultimately, the way I see it is, as an athlete, the best athletes, as y'all know, you're going to adapt to the systems that are put in place in front of you, right? The best athletes adapt quickly. Yeah. And so I think I'm having to, or I have adapted to the NFL style of play. Whereas in college, it was, hey, be a football player to go win games because this is what I'm going to adapt to the system that you're asked to play in. Mm-hmm. And so that obviously style of play is not super prevalent in the NFL. So there's things that I have to adapt in my training in order to fit those systems and styles of more the NFL game. And so I've explored the depths of so many different trainers, philosophies, principles, working with a ton of different people. I've done a lot of work with Bobby Stroop, who's great. Yeah. He lives in Kansas City, works with Patrick. Super smart, he's a really good friend, continue to work with him. Went out to San Diego, worked with Tom House, got to learn his whole mechanical breakdown of throwing. Obviously, he worked with Nolan Ryan and Drew Brees, Tom Brady, kind of all those guys. So he's kind of adapted and grown into that. Worked with a guy down in Jacksonville named Tom Gormley, who does a lot of throwing mechanics. So essentially, I got another guy named Kai Heck, who I'm working with now, that's all like neurological based, wizard, like all nervous system and cerebellum and balance and training. So literally, I'm trying to. Yeah.
It's a whole different world. Like none of us.
We don't.
Cerebellum.
We don't got 4 different specialists.
Sam, you have an iconic. I don't know if we talk about this yet, but iconic phrase after y'all won against Georgia with saying Texas, we're back. Man, that was cool, by the way. That was for real.
Part of a lot of big moments.
That was kind of at that time. We needed that. Like that. That was like we needed that because we've been down and you were a part of that. The pride and the winning tradition that you take with being a Longhorn, seeing that going to the NFL and being around guys and playing against different Longhorns. How is that? How cool is that to go take pictures? Because we got them all out now. We probably the most we've ever had in the league now. But I mean, some guys you don't even you just know they're you don't know them personally, but you take a picture with them because they're Longhorns. We're family. How cool is that to go against other Longhorns in the NFL?
It's awesome. It's one of the cooler things about being in the league, guys that you played with, guys that you watched, guys that you grew up watching, guys that now you got guys that I didn't play with that are in the league.
Yep.
But obviously there's that brotherhood, and I got so many jerseys that I'm going to be able to hang up in a man cave one day, you know. So it's fun. It's really cool, I think, as you guys can relate to, like, once you get in the league. I mean, in college you're like, man, I don't like any other team, and I want everybody to lose except for us.
Yeah.
And then in the league, it's like, I want all of my guys to win.
Yeah.
You know.
There you go.
And so it's really cool to be able to play. I mean, every week it's always like, all right, who do they got over there that I played with or went to UT?
Now, do y'all still talk? But back in the day, we used to talk noise in the locker room about our college team.
Absolutely.
And you I mean, we've been killing it. So I'm sure you got a lot of.
Yeah, it was a great year.
Yeah.
No, but I'll jump in real fast because Higgs had a great question. He said, "Did you play with Tyquan Lewis and Trey Sermon? Were they from Ohio State? Were they talking a little mess before the game?"
Yes. So we played the Sunday before the Friday that we played. So it wasn't much time because we were out of there, but Tyquan texted me during the game. I don't want to hear from Trey because Trey tried to claim OU, and then we beat the brakes off of them, and then he was like, "Oh no, I'm Ohio State." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I see how it is. I'm not even messing with you anymore. Don't talk to me."
That's a whole nother sidebar with the portal.
Yeah, no
Guys
doubt.
are coming in and being able to rep 2 to 3 teams.
Right.
That was struck out.
Exactly.
I kind of got a two-part question, so everybody kind of hang tight. Kind of sticking with DJ about like fellow Longhorns. What have you seen from Adonai Mitchell this season in his development?
Man, AD is a talent.
Yeah.
Just so unbelievably talented.
He's from the H, that's why.
Oh yeah. He likes to let everybody know about it. I love AD. We got to form a great relationship this year, and trying to be there for him his rookie year and help him any way possible. Super talented, like one-on-one. He was our third down guy. Third down, you're going to get man-to-man coverage. Put him on return routes. Put him on stop routes. Just let him work, and he worked the best of them in the league. And so I'm excited for his growth and his he's going to just continue to get better as he matures on and off the field. So it was really cool to be able to spend time with him. I wish I got to play with him at UT, and we talked about that all the time. But I'm excited for him. He's got a bright future.
Yeah, I love hearing that. And then second part, kind of going back to Rod's point about mechanics and transition into the league. For you specifically, what was the steepest learning curve for you? Like, what did you have to adjust the most to transition into the NFL?
Mechanically speaking?
Just anything.
Oh, anything. Yeah. Well, everything, first off. Everything. Completely different. I think the biggest thing for me has been the anticipation part and the speed of the game, especially at the quarterback position. And how do you replicate the game without getting reps is the hardest part, because you look at the guys that have success. Jared Goff, like, he's played a lot of ball. Jalen Hurts played a lot of ball. Patrick Mahomes played a lot of ball. And so there's a learning curve. And if you're not in the first round, if you're not a first round guy, your leash isn't very long to where you can really develop those reps. And so for me, it's how do I do everything possible to make sure that my process from getting the play to getting the ball out of my hand is as fast as possible, because it's all about anticipation. And you jokers on the other side of the ball are so fast and get there so quick that, like, you got to get the ball out of your hand in 2 seconds. And there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of moving pieces. And so I think, that's mechanical. That's speeding everything up. I think, I could write a whole dissertation about what my problems were coming in, and what I needed to change rotationally, how to move the pelvis, being posterior instead of being in my quads, working on the shoulder girdle, making sure that my low trap and lats are activated using obliques and the whole rotator cuff, but it's hard to do when you have 5 AC joint injuries that you're overcoming, and neurologically you have neural pathways that have shut down because of pain, and you play through pain and you learn how to throw through pain, so you develop bad habits. It's hard to be rotational and efficient with those things. So there's a whole there's a whole layer to it. But from that, I say all that because that's the body part. That's just making sure it's quick and making sure that you're firing when your brain says to fire. And then also, there's a whole game planning part. How do you watch film? What does Monday look like? What does Tuesday look like? What does Wednesday look like? What does Thursday look like? How are you splitting up the week? And then really making sure that that's the most efficient way to prepare for Sundays and to be able to be sharp and feel confident. I think ultimately that's the biggest thing, especially as a young player, like feeling good when you're walking into the game instead of being like, man, I don't know. Because then if you have that I don't know, there's that split second of indecision and it's too late.
Man, you learn a lot. That's awesome.
Man, no,
I mean, that's spot on.
Playbook-wise, right, going from college to the NFL, obviously the playbook expanded for all of us. We experienced some things that we didn't experience, but from the quarterback position, how much more was placed on your plate just learning the playbook? Was it making that jump from college to professional?
I think by the end of my career at Texas, Coach Herman did a great job of putting a good amount on my plate. I was flipping protections, checking plays versus blitzes, checking runs and passes. And so I think that like the overall concept of the game was there, but it was just a lot more detailed in the league because you got to know the defenses now, and there's so many defenses that they can throw at you. And then now it's not just one defense, it's learning defensive coordinators and what tree that they were under. And so there's a lot that goes into that because then that helps you make decisions. And I think ultimately you get to a point where like you can only run so many concepts. Offensively, like every team runs the same offense for the most part. Like they're going to get to it and dress it up in different ways, and the best coordinators get to those plays in different ways and disguise different formations to tendencies to throw you guys off. And so I think it's really just like it's more strategic. Where like in college it's just like, we're going to run all go and we're going to make it work because we're better. Whereas now it's like more strategic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that. One thing that I learned in the league is that there actually are superhumans.
Yes.
I mean, they don't have superpowers. Like they don't, you know what I mean? They don't.
Who said they don't?
They might.
Not the kind you see in movies, but they are. It's a different scale.
Miles Garrett might have superpowers.
Okay.
That was the name I was about to drop. Him and Saquon, they might have superpowers.
When you're in that
Put
locker
that
room,
in there too.
You play that league level, you're like, oh, these dudes are different. Give me a couple of examples, whether it be teammates or guys you just on the sideline was like, what the they showed you some superhuman ability because it's real, man. People don't realize it's real. We see it.
Real.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in a room with two of them, or I was in a room this last year with two of them, and Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco.
Oh, really? Okay.
You watch them throw the football, and you're like, you got two of the best throwers in the league. And so, I mean, and then Anthony athletically, he's a superhuman.
Yeah.
You look at his combine numbers, things of that nature. So, I mean, he's up there. And then, it's always the defensive ends that we're always worried about at the quarterback position, right? The Myles Garretts. I mean, I remember we played against Myles Garrett 2 years ago, and it was like, what? How do you do that? Like, it's his cheat code, And so really, it's the defensive lineman that you see, and then obviously Saquon doing what he's doing. We didn't play against him this year with Philly in that offensive line, but. That's definitely a real thing. The superhumans are out there.
Year 4 in the books now, right? Getting ready to head into free agency for you for the first time in your NFL career. What's the off-season prep like? Like, where are you going? Where are you training? How are you training? Moving back and forth. And then number 2, is there a sense of calmness or nervousness as you enter this kind of unfamiliar territory in a spot where I'm where I want to be from standpoint of playing professionally, but I don't know where I'll be playing that at next year.
Yeah, it's a unique space. It's a new space. I think from a training standpoint, like I've developed kind of the systems and the ways that I think that the off season should go. Most of that's going to be here in Austin, and kind of getting to that. I'll pop down to Florida a few times, kind of all over the country to see different people there, but be here for the most part in Austin. And then, I think free agency is interesting. I should probably ask you guys about what that looks like.
We've all had it.
No, I think it's a unique deal because obviously when you're under contract, you know where you're going to be the next year. And so now entering into free agency, my wife and I's perspective is kind of like it's really out of our control, and like God has been so faithful through the process up until this point, and we didn't expect to learn as much as we did in Indianapolis. So like wherever he takes us now, we know that it's going to be fruitful because we know, he works all things together for good. And so the lessons that we've learned already, we have trust in him and we've experienced that. And so it's just like, man, this is fun. Like, let's be on this journey. Let's ride this journey. I mean, who knows what could happen or what that trajectory looks like. So just enjoy it. And that's kind of the mindset. Now, it's easier said than done. There's days when it's like, man, what's going to happen, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's real. I'm not going to act like it's all sunshine and rainbows just because I believe in a creator that has a great plan. Like, that's part of it too. But that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. I got a question for you, and you can say as much or as little as you want about this, but it was a rare moment a couple of years ago, maybe last year, when we talked about this off camera, but whenever the coach got fired mid-season and they pulled Jeff Saturday off ESPN, no coaching experience. I've never seen anything like that. What were the players just as confused as everybody else kind of watching that situation?
Yeah, I would say it was a tough year overall for everybody. Unfortunately, that was the year that I got an opportunity. And I know we were talking before this, like, so much of the quarterback position is the opportunity that you step into. And that 22 season, it was a tough opportunity to step into. But yeah, I think we're professionals, right? There's not going to be a whole lot of talking of like what's going on, like, man, this is crazy, because ultimately they're employing us and we got a job to do. And so does it add a little psychological layer where it kind of throws things off? Absolutely. And when the margin for error and the margin of victory in the NFL is so small, that definitely makes a huge impact. So yeah, it was a tough year. I think most people you talk to that were on that team that have either been in the league for a long time was like, that was the craziest year that I've ever been a part of. And to know that that's when I got my opportunity kind of sucks, but learned a lot and better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of piggybacking off that, when you talk about quarterbacks having success in this league, it's about the parts that you put around them. And from your experience with the Colts, there's been a lot of moving parts, whether it's been fired coaches, coordinators, stuff like that. You haven't had the consistency in your career that other guys have given you. Can you kind of speak on the importance of having that consistency and having a strong supporting cast as a quarterback?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's everything. It's everything,
yeah.
Right? I mean, you guys know. And there hasn't been a lot of stability, and there wasn't like a perfect situation teed up for me. But I also have to say, like, the Colts organization has been great to me. They do things the right way. The ownership, I think, does things the right way. The general manager, Chris Ballard, very close with him. He's been great to me. I'm so thankful for what the Colts have been in my life and done for me. But yeah, I mean, is Patrick Mahomes if he gets drafted to the New York Jets or the Chicago Bears at the time that year? Is he the same guy if he doesn't sit behind Alex Smith and go to a team that has been winning the AFC? Probably not. I mean, he's an excellent player, and I think he's probably the best in the league, and not probably, he is, and like, he's in a great situation. Yeah. But there's so many things that have to go right, and the quarterback always gets way too much praise for the wins, and they get way too much hate for the losses, where you have to have a good defense. Just bottom line. Yeah. You can't win games without a good defense. Yep. Bottom line. You have to have a good offensive line. And like, those are, and then it just, from there, it compounds if you have everything else. And so it really is a team game. And I think, it's a hard position because not a lot of people, y'all get it, but not a lot of people on the outside get it. Right. And so, yeah, that's kind of my takeaway.
I have one more question before we wrap up. You have younger athletes looking up to you, Sam, and you set a great example. Yep. What would you tell a high school quarterback that wants to be like Sam and just defeat all odds? What would you tell him to mentor them mentally and physically? What do they need to have? Being a quarterback, speaking to the quarterback position.
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say two-part. One, to any athlete, sport is such a microcosm of life. It is such an awesome opportunity to fine-tune characteristics, principles, and values in which you view life. Because what you encounter in sport, regardless of the position, is what life is going to throw at you. Yeah. And I would say get to know your creator, because he's put you and he's given you those gifts for a reason. and he's going to be with you every step of the way, and he wants to have a relationship with you, and he's going to teach you things through sport that are going to carry on for literally eternity. And then from a quarterback standpoint, you got to be set apart. You have to be set apart. You have to be able to have the dog and the fortitude to press on through the good times and the bad times. And so, you got to be the hardest working player on the team as a quarterback. You're going to be the leader whether you like it or not. And always put the team first. I mean, there's so many different things that you could go down, and slogans and things like that, but that would be the basis.
Man, that was awesome, inspiring.
That was great. That's a great way to Well, man, before we get out of here, I want to take it a little bit back to the 40 to Texas a little bit and just hear your thoughts. And I know you have a lot of close relationships with some of the guys on the team. Obviously, I know for a fact because Michael Taff has talked about you a ton. What are your thoughts on the current state of the program, and also what's your relationship like with some of the guys on the team? And do you have a relationship or a communication pattern at all with Quinn or Arch or anybody like that?
Yeah. Well, kind of state of the union. Obviously, proud to be a Longhorn.
Yes, sir.
Very proud to be a Longhorn. I think that Coach Sark has done a great job. Obviously, with his experience in the league, and then also his experience around college football. He knows how to build a roster, and I think he's done a great job of building out the trenches. You look at those guys in there, and you're like, man, those are some grown men in there. And so he's done a great job there. And then obviously he's a great play caller. We all know that. And I knew that he was going to do a really good job because Matt Ryan was with him in Atlanta, and he was like, Sark can dial it up. He can dial it up. So I'm really excited for the direction that he's taken. Then I definitely have relationships. It's getting to the point where there's guys on the team. Most of the guys on the team I didn't play with, but for a little bit it was always guys that I did play with. Obviously, I'm very close with Michael growing up, so talk to him consistently throughout the season, and then talk to Quinn and Arch a good amount. Made myself available to them, and they'll reach out if there's ever anything that they need. So obviously very proud of all those guys, and there's definitely others that could be thrown into that category, but always just want to be a resource and available, and helpful to the team in whatever way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Do you guys have anything before we get out of here? I mean, I know we probably have to do a part 2. So before I let everyone wrap, I knew you held some records at Texas, but I did a little digging here. Most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in a season, 16. Fewest games to reach 2,000 yards passing in a season, tied with Colt McCoy. Fewest game to reach 1,000 yards passing in a season, tied with 7 others. Lowest interception rate in a career, minimum 300 attempts. This is where some of them get crazy. Most consecutive pass attempts without an interception, 308. That's crazy. That's crazy. Most 400-yard passing games in a season. I mean, I can keep going. I won't embarrass you. But I mean, there's like 10 more on that list. So it's
legendary.
It's impressive, man. We can't thank you enough for being here. And like I said, we'd love to have you back for a part 2 sometime.
I would love to.
So thank you so much, man.
Thank you guys.
All right, hook 'em.
Appreciate it.
Hook 'em.